On Friday, activists against rising fascism in our country called for an economic blackout. No buying at big box stores, chain restaurants. If you have to spend money, spend cash. Definitely don't run your card anywhere and only at locally owned businesses. I participated in this economic blackout along with many, many others, and it was hard. It was payday, which is typically when I go grocery shopping or run some errands, but I want to fight fascism. So I restrained myself, only going out to dinner at a locally owned restaurant and paying cash. On Saturday morning, there was chatter among those who participated and its critics, the action's critics, asking for numbers. Did it work? Did they even feel it? Did it even matter? Some said it would only matter if the blackout was sustained, if we restrained our spending for weeks or months or years, often citing the Montgomery bus boycott of the civil rights movement, which lasted 13 months. One of my trusted seminary professors, Dr. Stephen Ray, who was instrumental in forming me into who I am now, shared some wisdom in the midst of all of this. He said, "The boycott was a success if numbers of people found that they had inner resources to stand for justice, which they did not know they had." One of the major goals of the Montgomery bus boycott was to transform the people and their sense of themselves and their power. Kudos to everyone who participated yesterday. Good on you. I was grateful for this reminder, for the wisdom that we are going to need to be formed for the work that is ahead of us, as individuals, as a community, and as a nation. We, individually, as a community, as a nation, have not necessarily been exercising these muscles or getting oriented to this time. Things are rapidly changing every single day. And getting our bearings is going to take formation. Our scriptures today are about formation experiences. First for Moses, and then for Jesus and the disciples. In both stories, the characters go up a mountain, they climb up a mountain and enter into God's presence. And it changes them. Moses' face shines so much that it scares people, and he wears a veil when he's not in God's presence so as not to scare them. And for Jesus, his clothes become sparkling, and he is somehow transfigured before the disciples. He is physically changed. He is molded and shaped by being in God's presence. But it seems that all of them were changed spiritually and internally too. Moses, Jesus, the disciples, they were molded and shaped by just being in God's presence. Moses on the mountain is receiving the law, the 10 Commandments, as a starting place for the people to begin rebuilding their life around after liberation from Egypt. But what Moses likely doesn't know at this point is that the Hebrew people are going to be wandering in the wilderness for the next 40 years. I imagine that the experience on the mountain with God restored him so intensely that his face seemed to shine, to glow, that it was returned to some youthful radiance, plus some, in preparation for the harsh years ahead that will weather him as a person, but also as their leader. All of these lines across my face tell you the story of who I am. So many stories of where I've been and how I got to where I am. Our faces tell the story of who we are and where we've been. What we've seen and what we've endured, our stress, our laughter, our dedication, and our focus. And in God's presence, right, the heavy yoke that is placed upon us by the forces of injustice and oppression, they are lifted, And our scriptural witness testifies that we'll be able to see the relief on our faces. There will be so much restoration that it's almost scary to look at. Jesus, like Moses, is transitioning his ministry into its next phase when he climbs the mountain. But when he returns to the valley, he will start heading toward Jerusalem, where he knows and everyone knows he will be killed. Prophets are killed in Jerusalem. And we know from this vantage point that he will not only be killed, but he will be betrayed, he will be abandoned, and he will be sold by those nearest to him. Because of what is ahead, Jesus needs to be formed for it. So he goes up to the mountain with 3 of his disciples, and they are brought into God's presence, and they are formed. Jesus is formed physically and spiritually, but the disciples are also formed theologically. They see Moses and they see Elijah. It is confirmed for them that Jesus is in this prophetic lineage of their common faith and expressing their desire to build tents so that everyone can remain there. They're formed in their perspective. It is not good to stay there in the formative experience forever, but it is good to traverse back down the mountain and put that formation they experienced to work. I have a sense that this experience of God's presence is what the hymn Blessed Assurance calls a foretaste of glory divine, a taste of what it is to be in the world as God dreams it to be, as the world as God is seeking to form the world into. God forms us so that we can form the world, starting with our own households, our own neighborhoods. In God's presence, we get a sense of what that world is supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to be like for everyone. We get a taste. And then when we leave that concentration of God's presence and we return to the world that has been afflicted by the spiritual forces of wickedness, we can see clearly how absolutely ill we have become. Just how much healing and restoration there is to do. As your pastoral leaders in this season, we've been struggling a bit with how formative this series has been. This series on our belovedness and our giftedness. It's been formative rather than prophetic. We haven't been necessarily speaking with power into the wretchedness of the world around us. But as we've walked through this series with you, we've been assured that the Spirit's movement has led us to the right place. The work against rising fascism, the hatred of the other, it will be a long one. It's going to be a long fight. And it will require each and every one of us to be formed by God, to shore up our inner resources, to become aware of our inner resources, to identify our spiritual gifts and our call to ministry so that we can deploy our gifts with the mighty power of God. So, I'd like to invite you to enter into God's presence with me. I think we do every time we gather. This space feels untouched by what is outside. And we come here and we seek formation, to be changed while we are here. So I invite you to take some deep breaths, perhaps close your eyes, and become aware of God's presence within and among you. Just like other parts of our body, our facial muscles absorb and store stress. And especially when we are overworked and tired, our facial muscles become hard and tight, constricting our blood vessels and limiting the flow of blood and nutrients to the face. Taking some time to deeply relax your face will not only help relax our tense facial muscles, it will improve our circulation and relieve stress. This release will also flow to the rest of our bodies, positively impacting our immune and our nervous systems and making us feel and look more relaxed. So we start by simply observing our bodies as we begin to relax. Notice your breath becoming softer and slower. And now, counterintuitively, I invite you to tense every single muscle in your face, really scrunching it up. And holding that tension for a few seconds before allowing everything to release. Take a couple of longer, slower breaths. And notice how different your face feels. We're going to consciously relax the face with each breath we take, so keep breathing. We're going to start with our scalp. Tension headaches are one of the most common forms of headaches, and so we are going to try to release the muscles in our scalp. Imagine that you are breathing into the space between your scalp and skin. Breathing softness across the top of the head and down the side and back of the scalp. Loosening, softening. Visualize your forehead as a broad and smooth expanse of skin. It is loose and warm. Breathe into it. Now raise and stretch your eyebrows up towards your hairline, holding those eyebrows for a moment before softening and releasing them, allowing your eyebrows to then slip to the side of your face. Take a few breaths right into the space between your eyebrows, also encouraging that stretch of skin to open and soften. Inhale. Exhale. Sense your eyes comfortably floating behind heavy eyelids in a warm and soft place. Allow the tiny muscles around and below your eyes to relax and breathe. Now imagine breathing into the pores of your skin across your face, maybe especially your cheeks, bringing a plumpness and softness to them. Feel the cool, life-giving air at the entrance of your nostrils as you inhale, and the coolness touching the nasal passage before you exhale a warmer breath. Allow your tongue to release and settle into the bottom of your mouth. A tight tongue is often associated with tight thinking. Encourage your tongue to soften and spread, which will encourage a releasing of your lips and jaw. Inhale. Exhale. Most of us hold tension in our jaws. Try clenching and then wiggling your jaw to release any holding. And encourage a sense of the jaw hanging open. Continue to breathe and scan your whole face for a few moments. Breathing in, sensing a soft and open face. Breathing out, releasing and letting go. They invite us, before returning to our day, spend a few moments exploring a half smile. Bring a very slight inward smile to the lips, and notice how this simple practice can also lighten and soften our face. Take time to just enjoy this mindful awareness of a smile. Inhale, exhale. You can open your eyes. Come to awareness of God's presence around you, here and among you. You are shining. Friends, no matter how strongly you feel God's presence in here, it won't change the world if we do not take it out of these doors, knowing with full confidence that you yourselves are a dwelling place of God. You are a house of God. By your nurture, by your outreach, by your witness, and by your organizing, God's power within you is revealed to all the world. And it transforms the world so much, it will change the face of the earth and the faces of all who dwell upon it. They will all shine. Amen.